anyway, Judy will make sure she gets home. Judy will take her up and say.
Thank you. So anyway, this is Lorena with the Center for Exceptional Families. I am a parent mentor for the North Central Arkansas area and also temporarily with Northwest Arkansas River Valley area. So for all of you, don't be jealous. I drive the most beautiful part of Arkansas. I saw 2 eagle last Friday, so it was just great. I've been with the Center for Exceptional Families for 7 years since its inception. I have a son who is awesome. He'll be 25 in December. He has multiple challenges or unique qualities. He can't walk, talk, or feed himself, but just to let you know, the school was so good that they made him the banner bearer for the high school marching band. So he was the mad scientist for the Nightmare Before Christmas. He was a dental patient, and they wrote him and his assistant in the Little Shop of Horrors, and he earned a letter jacket. So I think as far as the school is concerned, he's the only kid with the most profound, unique qualities to receive a letter jacket. And he was in the band for 5 years. So, but anyway, today, of course, I've already been through it, and some of you might not have, but before Isaiah turned 18, I needed to get a guardianship for him. And one of the challenges was that Isaiah is my great nephew. We adopted him at 2, but we still had some issues because mom and my brother still needed to be part of this. And so just to let them know. But Thomas is going to go into that. But it was an easy process because there was no challenges to Isaiah's guardianship as well as his adoption. But anyway, I don't want to belabor all of these things because Thomas has got some great information for you today. So Thomas, the floor is yours. And Michelle will be there as my backup for technical support. And we will have opportunity for questions and answers as Thomas will tell us when. Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And obviously this is a very relaxed environment. So, I mean, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, whatever, certainly feel free to just raise your hand virtually, I guess, anytime you'd like to. Again, my name's Thomas Smith. I'm an attorney. I live in Hot Springs and I have my main office in Hot Springs. We also have an office in Little Rock, and we work really all around the state. We have clients literally in all 4 corners of the state. We practice a lot in estate planning, trust administration, that sort of thing, real estate work, and some business and corporation work. But really, the heart and soul of our practice is special needs planning. It's very near and dear to me, and it's the central focus of what we try to concentrate on. So, really, Lorena had asked me to kind of talk about guardianships in particular, and I think what I'm going to do, this is actually just a part of a broader presentation. Most of the time when I meet with families that are transitioning families, and that really seems to be the time when most of this comes up, is when our child is approaching age 18, because that's when everything changes, and that's kind of when we got to start thinking about what's the long-term outlook here. There's generally 3 topics that I discuss with families, and the first one is I'm going to call it decision-making assistance. Is really kind of the broader topic, and so I think for today I'm going to just kind of give like the first third of this presentation. I'm not really going to go into other areas, but hopefully it'll answer some of your questions, or at least help you kind of navigate some of the issues that you're dealing with. So let's see if I can make this work here. So I always got to start off bringing up my main reason for being in this. Love it, my family on the side, little dog on the other side. And actually I need to update this. There's another dog now next to this one. So wife Carrie and son Grady, and 2 wonderful little puppies, I guess. So, so this overall presentation is just, again, the trifecta really of transitioning for special needs families. What's the three main things we need to work and think about? And all this occurs as my son there is 18. That's his little 18 in there. That's really what drives most of this. When our children are under 18, we obviously sometimes have some unique things we have to deal with in the special needs context. But from a legal perspective, it's really not any different than any other family as far as law is concerned. But that changes when we hit 18. And so what do we think about with that? So the first thing we're going to think about, and really the focus of today's presentation, is decision-making assistance. And I put the word assistance there. I haven't always had that, but I think that's really key because there's going to be an overarching theme throughout this whole conversation today that our job as parents and guardians, grandparents, whatever, as the children turn 18, is we don't want to just totally, we want to allow them to be as autonomous as possible. Our job is to assist them. We want to help them. And that's obviously going to be on a continuum. There's going to be some that need a lot of assistance and help, and some that just need a little nudge here and there, a little guidance, a little help. So our goal isn't to entirely supplant our child's decision-making ability. We just want to find the right way to help them out. That's really what we're going to talk about today. The other two topics that are really important for transitioning families that I'm not going to spend as much time on, but I will mention them. Coordinating benefits. So when we're under 18, how we think about health care, obviously. So maybe there's our kids, maybe we're just on an employer-sponsored, mom and dad's employer-sponsored plan. Many of us have utilized TEFRA. Lots of options there. But many of those drop off when we're 18. So what does that look like moving forward? And in many cases, that's Medicaid. Also, SSI, as many of you know, is a cash benefit available for disabled beneficiaries. Most of the time when our children are under 18, they might not qualify, not so much because of the disability isn't present, it is, but the parent's income is deemed available to that child, so they're not eligible. However, when they turn 18, that's no longer the case. So where my son can be at home with me when he's the day before his 18th birthday and be ineligible for SSI, the very next day with no change other than he simply had a birthday, he is now eligible for SSI. So there's a whole dynamic there that's very interesting and very important. And then the last thing we will always talk about, again, we're not going to spend too much time today, but planning for the future. What does the future look like? How do we support them financially? And also how do we provide for them personally? We're going to talk a little bit about guardianships here in a little bit, but if I'm my son's guardian, I'm not going to be here forever. How do I help lay out a plan for who's going to be that guardian, who's going to be that caregiver moving forward? So that's kind of the last component. And you'll see that this is a little bit of a building a pyramid, right? So we have to talk about decision-making assistance first because our child probably maybe needs some help applying for the benefits that they will be eligible for when he turns 18. Okay, so to even get that application in play, to talk to the Social Security Administration, do all the things we do there, we have to set up the decision-making paradigm first. Then after we have benefits, then once we understand what those benefits are, that's when we look at how to plan for the future. And our plan is going to be based on what benefits the child is actually receiving. So you can see it's all tied together. There's a little bit of method to the madness. So, decision-making assistance. Why are we talking about this? We've already kind of hit on it. So while my son is under 18, he's like any other child. We're the parents. He's a child, and that whole paradigm remains in place as it does for every other family. Healthcare providers will turn to us. Any sort of school-related decision obviously falls back to us. And we're able to make decisions about his well-being, where he needs to go, schools he need to be in. If there's certain medical procedures that maybe are optional, but whatever, we're the parents, and that's no different than every other family that's around us. However, the day he turns 18, in the eyes of the law, he's now an adult, whether that's good or bad. And it raises a number of issues. The first one I always think about, of course, is healthcare. Is that how are we going to continue to help navigate healthcare after they're 18? Many doctors' offices, rightly so, once they start turning 18, will start asking, okay, is there at least a healthcare power of attorney, or is there something, what do we have in place to kind of help us leave mom and dad in that decision-making network? And then it's also true that once my son turns 18, he has the ability to do all sorts of things. He can enter into contracts. He can fill out credit card applications. He can open bank accounts. He can do anything that anybody else could do. And is that good? Is it healthy? Is he in a situation where he might be making decisions that take him off very important benefits, namely Medicaid? Can he be taken advantage of? Is he susceptible to being taken advantage of in incurring some form of legal liability that he had absolutely no idea about, but because he's 18, it's presumably, as a law, he can do those sorts of things. So those are the sorts of concerns that we have in mind. Also, one more I feel is very important that I think it's always great to mention. As many of you know, though some of you might not, our children can stay in school until they're 21. So in a special needs context, the fact that they became seniors and turned 18, that does not necessarily mean that the school and the services we're receiving there are no longer available to us. And in many situations, that extra year really can be of tremendous benefit. But if the child's 18, who's going to enroll them? So that starts this whole issue of just because they turned 18 in our context, we many times as parents, our guardians or even grandparents, there's a real important role to play in helping navigate that. That 18th birthday is kind of an arbitrary thing. It doesn't necessarily change the child, but it did change the legal environment we're in. So that's why we pay attention. So today there are two, and someday there may be a third, but for right now there are two primary tools available to us for dealing with this issue. And the rule in our office is always, first off, we're morally and legally obligated to search for the least restrictive alternative. We never, ever jump straight to the guardianship. A lot of times people will make appointments and come in or on Zoom or whatever, and the basis of the consultation is, well, I need a guardianship. But that might not be true. So what we always want to do, we want to explore what is our diagnosis, how high functioning is our child, and is there any way that we could use something less restrictive? And one of our rules is we always meet the child. We talk with them personally so that we try to get an understanding. Is it guardianship absolutely necessary? Is there some other way that we can do this? And what we really want to look at is a power of attorney. Let's see if we get in here. So let's see if we get this to the power of attorney stage. Least restrictive alternative, obviously, is where we're at. We always assess the child. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping ahead here. So a power of attorney is, many of you may know it in different contexts. A power of attorney is simply a document that we prepare that the child can sign. And it comes in two kinds. There's a healthcare power of attorney, which obviously relates to healthcare and is arguably the most important of the two, because at least it leaves whoever is named in it can continue to participate in the healthcare decision-making process. It also serves as a HIPAA release, so it allows doctors and nurses to discuss healthcare information with us without getting in trouble. Many of you know that HIPAA rules today are very, very strict, and doctors and nurses, et cetera, have to have some form of written release to be able to share information. So healthcare power of attorney serves both. It allows us to receive information and also help direct care. And there's also a general power of attorney. So a general power of attorney is really for everything except healthcare. It allows us to write checks and pay bills and help navigate checking accounts, car titles, all sorts of things. It really just allows us to kind of continue to play that parental role, help doing all these various things. The healthcare power of attorney and general power of attorney there's a few dynamics to them. So they're very easy. I mean, it's a much easier process. These are documents we can prepare in our office. But there's a couple of dynamics to them that I think we need to, this is part of the process. So the pluses, they're easy to do, and they give the agent, presumably mom or dad, guardian, grandma, grandpa, the power to act on their behalf. So if I have my son's power of attorney, I can act for him. I can go to the doctor with him. I can talk to the doctor with him. I can help him pay his bills, help him pay his rent, those sorts of things. So that's great. It allows the child to still be on their own. And that's a real important dynamic that often gets lost. And I really want to stress this for a minute. So a power of attorney allows me to act on my son's behalf, but it does not in any way prevent him from continuing to act on his own behalf. So a good, for instance, there is my wife has a healthcare power of attorney for me. That's in case I am involved in a car wreck. I travel some. I was just down in Florida last week. I mean, God forbid something happen. She has that power of attorney. She could step in and use it if necessary. But that certainly by no means prevents me from acting on my own. I mean, I still talk to my own doctor, obviously. So it's the same here. You know, we can have a power of attorney to help our child, but that did not in any way prevent my child from going ahead and doing what they want to do too. So it's really an assistance device. We have not restricted the child's autonomy in any way by having that. So there's some downsides to a power of attorney. The big one is going to be it requires sufficient capacity. And one of the things when I meet a transitioning child, I'm really assessing capacity. That's kind of like one of the first things I want to do. Is there sufficient capacity to really understand what they're doing? And that is required. It is effectively a contract. So is there enough capacity where the child could enter into a contract and it be valid? If there is, then a power of attorney might really be something to consider. Doesn't mean it's what you have to do. Guardianships still have their role to play, and we'll talk about that. But if there's adequate capacity, we're going to give a hard look at just utilizing a power of attorney, and maybe that's good enough. But if there's not, then we have to kind of move on anyway. In this last bullet point on the bottom, you notice it's on a couple slides because I think this kind of cuts two ways. So on one hand, the power of attorney allows my child to continue acting on behalf. That may be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It's spendthrift and careless, and again easy to susceptible to being taken advantage of. I mean, that can really cut either way. And it's everything is very family specific, child specific. And that's why we just have to take time, meet the family, meet the child, and assess what's really best moving forward. This whole process, anytime anybody would come in and ask about a potential guardianship, very first thing we're going to do, we're going to go through this process right here, and not necessarily in an explicit way, but this is, for me at least, this is the process that's going through my mind. Is there any way we should consider these alternatives before we even get into the whole guardianship situation? That's powers of attorney. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, the power of attorney isn't an option when we look at a guardianship. So then we move to guardianship. If we've explored some alternatives and we just don't feel like that's a good option, maybe there's not adequate capacity, maybe the child really just wants to have a guardian. I mean, that happens a lot. We have a lot of transition children come here and they'll look me in the eye. I mean, I know they've got capacity. They can tell me exactly what they want, but they just feel better having mom and dad in that guardianship role, or grandma or grandpa or whoever. And so that's not infrequent at all. It's a comfort level. The child knows they still need support. They fully intend on re-enrolling in school an extra year, and everybody would just feel better having this. That happens a lot. The other one, very easy to be taken advantage of. The child can be sometimes. So that's when we just go ahead and move the guardianship. And again, if there's any questions, or please feel free to raise your hand at any time. Otherwise, I just kind of keep going. So the guardianship, I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody. Maybe not. So the guardianship is a court proceeding. It's a much more formal process. So where we can do a power of attorney here in our office and not really involve any third party, the guardianship is a formal court proceeding. It, for all intents and purposes, restores that parent-child relationship paradigm that ended on the 18th birthday. It essentially restores it entirely. And here's kind of how this works. So it's a petition filed in the circuit court in whatever county you live in, and whoever would like to be the guardian signs the petition, and we file it with the court. We then set a hearing, and we'll go before the judge, and a few things have to happen. The first one is there has to be an affidavit signed by a healthcare professional that answers 3 questions. The courts have very specific health related questions that have to be answered, and these have to be in affidavit form. It does not necessarily have to be from a doctor. It can be signed by a nurse or a nurse practitioner. But that has to be in place. Once all that's in place, a hearing date is set, and then the child is actually served. It sounds a little scarier than it actually is, but there does have to be actual service on the child of the paperwork. And we go have a hearing. In most cases, these are uncontested hearings, and by that I mean the child itself is not really contesting it. Everybody's kind of on the same page as what's better for the child, and mom or dad, either one, whichever one is seeking the guardianship. And I'm using mom and dad a lot. Many times today, this is grandma, grandpa, guardian. Somebody's already been a guardian prior to age 18. Or just go and answer some questions and often have a dialogue with the judge. Once the guardianship is granted, there's some things that have to happen. You do have to file an annual report. That report talks about health and well-being. Is the guardianship still necessary? As guardian, you are responsible for the finances, so there's an accounting there that we can try to help with. and it becomes a bit of an ongoing thing, which is good and bad. The little downside is it's more work on you, but I think it's also good too, because many times we get these guardianships at age 18. We don't necessarily have to keep them forever. Maybe we're really trying to help that child get in their mid-early 20s and kind of get to a stable stage. And then these annual reports are a good time to say, hey, this has served its purpose, but maybe no longer necessary. The supportive decision making, something I'll go into here in a minute, but that's kind of guardianships in a nutshell. There's several things that I think are worth mentioning. So the first one is, this is in my view an unfortunate rule that we have here in Arkansas. I hope to actually be a part of changing this someday, but it's very important. So many of us have our children on the waiver waiting list, or perhaps they're actually, on the waiver now, actually off the list. A waiver worker, who many times, especially for single parent families, is mom or dad. A waiver worker cannot be a guardian in Arkansas, and that can be a bit of a challenge if that single parent wants to be both. Frankly, it puts them in a bit of an untenable situation, in my opinion. But for right now, that is the rules we deal with. So often, one of the first things I tell a family when we start this process is, let's be sure to think our way through who intends to be the waiver worker. If it's mom or dad and we're all still there, then one can be a guardian, one can be the waiver worker. If it's a single parent household and that single parent intended to be the waiver worker, we really got to think our way through this. So that's very, very important.
Thomas, this is Lorena.
Yeah.
There are some changes in that. They just haven't decided yet. I don't know if Rodney knows more than I do on that, but they did have a meeting recently where the PASS and the DSP workers, not DSP workers, but the DHS, we're talking about giving the guardian opportunity to also be a waiver provider. I've been asked if I wanted to do that prior to, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And for me, I said it's a catch-22. And that's, to me, is rife for fraud. So it's I don't think it's finalized yet, but it's being discussed on the state level. So
yeah, it's an issue that comes up all the time. I mean, however you come down on it, and there's certainly good discussions to be had about various thoughts on that issue. My main job as an attorney is just to make sure the family's aware of it.
yes,
Because the last thing you want to do is get a guardianship and then finally after years of waiting come off this waiver list and realize you can't be both. So that could be a rude awakening, and I want to make sure, as long as that is the rule, people are at least going into it eyes wide open so they know what they're getting into. And I thought I saw a question. I'm not real good at this. I guess it's gone away. If there's somebody posted a question, I missed it, please. Oh, I'm sorry. There is. What is a waiver worker? So the waiver worker is once you come off the waiting list, the waiver. So let's back all the way up. A waiver of what? Right. So it's a waiver from the traditional Medicaid plan. It is a waiver in that it allows our children, loved one, to have someone paid to help them stay at home. So it's a waiver in that we're trying to keep children at home or wherever it is they want to be, rather than in institutions they don't necessarily have to be. And so the waiver worker is that person, or generally persons, plural, that work to help to do that. It can be an individual. It can be many cases, it's a parent, but not always so. There's several, like in our area, there's several agencies that provide workers. So mom and dad, whoever go off to work during the day, and this agency is providing waiver workers in home. So that's what the waiver worker is the individual or individuals that are paid to help keep our kids at home. Turn 18.
Thomas, also, and to answer that question too, she said her son's still on the list. They are releasing a very large number. I can't remember what the number is, but it's over a period of weeks or months. So her son might get off. Cindy also had a statement. It says here, she believes the legislation now allows guardians to be waiver workers, but it's up to the providing agencies to approve it. So you have to check and see with the provider first. And Cindy, if I believe you're talking about the 4 passes, Care Source, Empower, Summit, and Arkansas Total Care, those are the ones that would be paying out the monies. Oh, Cindy, is that Cindy again?
I'm not aware of legislation now that has been, and maybe it has,
Yes,
but by all
yes.
means, I'm not, certainly don't track everything, but I'm not aware of that, but I am aware that there's a lot of talk about it as a current issue.
This is a new fiscal year. So they were discussing it last month, the
Yep.
last couple of months. And so, and it says here, our worker was just informed.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So there's a lot going on, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like, it's fluid right now
It
because
is.
like Cindy said, each agency, and my son is with Summit, but his provider is Network of Community Options. And so I was informed that this was a possibility as early as June that they were discussing it. So as someone mentioned, and you mentioned getting a hold with the agencies that they have to find out what's the latest. I think
Absolutely.
that's all
Thank-
the questions.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing. I really, really appreciate that. I had not heard that. So thank you very much for sharing. I knew it was some possibility, but it sounds like it's actually developing at a pretty good
Excuse me.
pace. So
It's happening. So
thank
but
you
I'm
for
sorry.
sharing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I don't remember where. So I think I want to talk about some important things to know. Obviously, the way that component of it. Historically, I'll just say that's been a conversation we've had to have that may be changing as time goes on. Should the family consider who's a guardian in that dynamic? And then the other thing I just always want to remind folks. So we spend a lot of time talking about, is it appropriate for the child to have a guardian as opposed to some other decision-making assistance? It's also extremely important for the person seeking the guardianship, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whether or not that's appropriate for them. You take on a fiduciary duty. There's a duty to the court to provide reports annually. It absolutely does not mean whatever money that child has is all of a sudden the guardians to go do what they want to with. And that can be kind of a rude awakening too. Any assets, anything that the child has to be used for that child's benefit. It is not ours to just go move in our checking account, go do whatever we want. So there is a certain level of responsibility that comes with the guardianship, and takes a little, in my view, a little prayerful consideration of whether or not that is really appropriate for us to get into. Sometimes it's not. So those are all conversations that we normally have. In either event, however you work it out, it's important to get it figured out before the child starts getting into applying for SSI and those things. I did want to take a minute and just briefly mention supported decision making. So, so the supported decision making, it's interesting. I've always attend an annual conference. It's Special Needs Trust Conference in Florida every year. It's just wonderful. It's people from around the country. You really get to hear how all these issues are developing coast to coast with real thought leaders. Very blessed to be able to go to. And there's some talk about, well, what is supported decision making and how various states handled it. So supported decision making is a proposed alternative, I guess, to guardianships or powers of attorney. It's more of a concept in my view than anything, but it's a concept that we don't, as we started this presentation, that we're not serving children by just supplanting their decision making. We're helping them by finding how to support that decision making process and helping them become as autonomous as possible. And certainly as a concept, I don't think anybody on this presentation would disagree with that. There's occasionally some legislations put forth that would add a third document, basically, not quite a power of attorney, but something kind of like it. Some states have adopted it with a fair amount of controversy, and it's currently not available in Arkansas. It may be someday. I'm not sure. It's been raised a few times and hasn't ever made it out of committee, actually. So, but I just thought, since we're going to take some time, you'd be aware of, sometimes you may hear that term, supported decision making, and I feel like in large part that's what we're really trying to do through our whole thought process here, to try to find how do we best support them, never jump straight to a guardianship, and really seek the least restrictive means possible. So, Larry, that kind of gets to the end of guardianships in general. I don't know if there's any questions about that, or if I've covered what you wanted to cover. Let's see. It says there's Holly has raised a hand. I'm going to try to figure out how to.
Holly's raised a hand. I guess I don't see it. So you're the host, so I don't see. Oh, that's my hand.
Uh,
Hi, this is Holly.
Oh, there you are, Holly. Okay. Do you have a question?
I'm afraid I'm messed it up again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Holly, please go ahead.
Hi, Thomas. I'm Holly, and I have a special needs son who turned 18 September 1st. And I actually had like 7 months before set up and started the process, and then did get guardianship because he will not be able to take care of himself medically, physically, all those things. However, it was a little bit strange and no one can answer it. I did get the documentation, the signed by the judge, etc. But they made me write a check for $100 bond, and no one can tell me what that is, and no one has cashed it. And I don't understand it or why, because I had like genetic documentation. It made me feel like they thought I was sketchy or something. Like, and I didn't understand why, kind of like where they serve your son. It was weird to me when they served him documents and he was standing there with me and then he just handed them to me. So it was kind of funny at the same time, but I was curious if you knew what that was, that bond.
Great question. It's a great question. And so I'm going to dive in a little deeper then. As part of this, I thought I might be going a little too far, so I'll kind of dive in. It'll take me a second. I'm going to get back to it. So guardianships actually come in two flavors, if you want to think about it that way. There's a guardianship of the person. So that's more akin to the healthcare power of attorney, if you want to think about that. Well, that's guardianship of the person. I can direct medical care. I can even sign admission papers into facilities, and I'm really caring for the person. And then there's a guardianship of the estate, which is a guardianship over money, essentially, money and assets. And many times when we seek a guardianship, we seek both, and that is
Right.
generally our default position. Although we don't have to, and that goes back to this least restrictive means paradigm. There have been many instances when I've sought a guardianship of the person because we really needed to save that person and they were in physical danger, but not necessarily the estate. So you can separate. But Holly, as part of the petition to when you sought guardianship of the estate, the default is that a bond is required. So what we do in our petition, we recite generally that there are no assets to speak of, typically not even any SSI at this point, and even if there were, it's not much. And we asked the court in our initial petition to grant the guardianship without bond. I've never been told no, but I'm guessing maybe, I don't know, in your circumstance, and maybe the petition did not request that the guardianship be without bond.
I think my attorney might have forgotten that because he said he understood it, but it didn't usually happen. And I think
Yeah, I've
it
never
was
seen it.
one of those. Yeah, because he has like, $100 from grandparents' birthday gifts, and
Yeah.
he does not get SSI at this point. So I was kind of like, what? They're like, well, they don't want you to misuse his funds. And I'm like, what funds? At this point, I do still get a little bit of child support, but that's it. So okay. So it was kind of almost maybe not a technical mess up, but not something that was directed at me in any particular
No,
way.
absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Not in any
All right. Well, that makes me feel better.
No, I mean, that's actually, if you were just pull out the statute and read it, that's what they're supposed to do.
Okay. All
So,
right. Good.
yeah, no, I would not.
And Thomas, I think one of the things, part of guardianship that when it happened with Isaiah was that included in the fee is the court cost. And I know for Isaiah, I think it was $150, something like that.
Yeah, it's now 165 file it, and you have to get a summons, which is only $5 or $10. And then you have to have them served, which whatever the process server charges, can be anywhere from $50 to $100. So there are some costs involved in it. The annual accounting, it also costs $50.
Okay, those are important things because I know when the person showed up at our door, there was a court summons for Isaiah, and of course I had to chuckle. I'm like, he can't even get in the court because it's on upper floor. They have a special way to get people up there that can't make it, and his wheelchair wouldn't do it. So I just teased the guy because I know him personally. And so then he started reading it to me, and I said, I'm not Isaiah. And so I made him read it to Isaiah. So anyway, that was, I think for people who are getting into this, they have to understand somebody from the court is going to show up at their door and have a summons and just to take away that fear factor.
So we really work to minimize that. Yeah. So
Okay.
here's a couple ways we go about doing it. And it's always a big deal to me when you hear serve, like, oh my God.
Yes.
Doing somebody, what are we doing?
Right.
And I try to tell folks, look, this sounds a lot more than what it is. So I'm very blessed. My assistant is actually a licensed process server. And in many cases, what we'll do is when somebody comes in just to sign some paperwork or visit or whatever, she'll already have it in an envelope and she just kind of slide it over and that's served. I mean, there's not even said anything, so we kind of make a non-event out of it. There's some counties we do, because we do these literally all over the state. And there are some counties where she's not appointed. And we have some process servers we work with where we kind of really downplay this and make this, we'll set up a meeting somewhere or something where it's just nothing. We just really try to minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take a little bit of
Yes.
maybe that raises the bond question does raise one. I'm gonna go off topic a little bit, Lorena, if I can, but
Sure.
this is important too. So many times, maybe we become guardian and then we turned 18, and that's when we want to apply for SSI. That raises another issue I think that gets lost a lot, but real important. Somebody is normally going to be appointed the representative payee to receive SSI. Okay?
Mhm.
That is not the same thing as a guardian.
Right.
And the guardianship court does not exercise jurisdiction over that person in their role as representative payee.
Mhm.
However, extremely important that the Social Security Administration does from time to time ask representative payees to provide an accounting of what have you been doing with this money? Where did it all go? So it goes back to the same thing I tell people, just because my son's now getting SSI money every month, that doesn't mean I can just take that, put it in my checking account, and that's mine.
Right.
It is important to have documentation of what we're doing. I really encourage families to use one account so you can pull statements showing the in and out, and come up with a plan of, okay, however much of this money is going to be rent, groceries, whatever, document what you're doing. Because whereas the guardianship court might not strenuously observe accountings, Social Security Administration, when they want to look at it, they want to know. And the representative payee is responsible for things that cannot be accounted for. So not the same thing as a guardian, but really for the family just as important.
Well, I get that for Isaiah, and it happens every year, and they split it. Isaiah gets this much money, so you itemize it, and it'll say how much did you, like you said, for rent, not rent, but for medical housing, yes, and then the others for leisure, other things, and so you have to basically balance it out. And if there's an imbalance, then if there's more left over, then that is added to next year. So, which might go into what you eventually might mention a little bit as the ABLE account for those who might have a little bit more. Because Isaiah's been on SSI for a long time. So I think he's now on SSDI because of the loss of my husband.
He probably is. And that is
yeah.
a better program.
Yeah.
Much better.
So
I know I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure we're hearing this. Cynthia said, question, $50 annual fee. I don't think I paid it the last 2 years. Well, when we file, probably, I don't know who it's filing. When we file an annual accounting in the probate court, we do it electronically, and they charge us $50 when we do that. Now, I don't know, some circuit clerks may not be collecting it. I'm not sure. You do get kind of an county by county deal there, but there is a $50 fee. We pay it. I'm sure.
I've never been charged.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, and even though Isaiah's lawyer said that it would be a yearly thing, I've never, since he turned 18, had those issues. But there's this question, I'm not quite sure. I don't think I've paid who is supposed to get paid to.
I think that's he's asking the $50 fee.
Okay.
Yeah. I know here in Garland County, I mean, we have to pay it every time. There's also a lot of counties that aren't on the electronic filing system. They may, if they're still just paper filing, they may not be charging the $50. I'm not sure.
Okay.
On the counties that require electronic filing, you can't, it's all automated. You can't file it until you pay the $50. So that's been my experience there.
I'm not sure. Michelle was typing something.
I guess since we
I was
Go
just
ahead.
marking things that have been answered so they don't just hover there.
Hang there. Oh, okay. Holly said my sister has to fill out the form and has never been charged either. So once again, I think for we who haven't been charged, hopefully they won't make us back pay what is owed. But just to be aware that if they get to this electronic process, that charge might be forthcoming.
It could be.
So
It will be.
I'm not going to go to my county clerk and say, how come I didn't get it yet? We'll just wait till they get up to the 21st, 22nd century, whatever you want to call it. So Do you want to mention the ABLE? You said
Yeah, I guess we talk
formation
about that for a
benefits.
quick second. I'm not
Yes.
sure how long you want to keep going. So,
We've got about 5 minutes, and then if there's more questions.
yeah. So ABLE accounts, and many of you already know this, but it's really important. So ABLE accounts are one solution to a lot of problems. So first, let me just kind of address the issue. So once we get our guardianship, then we've applied for SSI and we get it. Now we're getting our, I think the full benefit amount now is $841 a month. It will be changing to $913 a month next year, so that's nice. But the issue with that is, for a lot of us, depending on which Medicaid program we're under, we still have an asset cap. Traditionally, that's been $2,000. If you're on the waiver, it's higher. You can have a little bit more, but it's still quite low. It's $7,500 or something. It's still very low. And the real issue is if we're accumulating money, we can get past these numbers very quickly.
Mhm.
And I don't want to just spend money to spend money, right? We want to be good stewards of what we have. So how do we navigate this? Because when we applied for SSI and we became eligible, Social Security took down our bank account information. They're monitoring it. If it goes over the asset cap, they will know it. It might not say anything right at that moment, but it'll come up. So what's the best way to do it? So an ABLE account, and that's an acronym, Achieving a Better Life for Everyone, I'm pretty sure, ABLE. It's an account that is very similar to a 529 college savings plan, if you know what that is. Some people do, some don't. But it's essentially an account that you can open. You can put up to $100,000 in it and not be countable for SSI purposes. And so this is a great tool. Now I don't have to worry about my $2,000 or my $7,000 or whatever program cap I'm operating under. I can take some amount from my monthly benefit, automatically transfer to ABLE account, and it's not countable. And I can use those funds for a disability related expense. You see my air quotes, because that is a largely undefined term, but it is certainly covers things such as housing, utilities, food, clothing, et cetera, medical bills, even education, tuition assistance, all those sorts of things. And so that's a lot of times that's where I like to use the tool. It has an investment component to it if you are interested in that. So it works much like your 401k does. It can earn money tax deferred basis. The contributions to the plan are tax deductible up to the cap. You can put $16,000 a year into a ABLE account, and beginning next year that will be moved to $17,000 a year that you can put into an ABLE account. And it just becomes a real flexible tool. Many times these plans come with a debit style card, so it makes withdrawals very easy. And the funds don't have to be held in an investment model. It can just be held in cash, just like a checking account. So it can really serve a variety of roles. It can be just essentially, I'm holding this, and this is my money that I'm going to spend just like it was in my regular checking account for food. I can say I'm going to take some percentage and put it in this investment model. It's very flexible. It's just really whatever the account owner decides to do with it. But I think for a lot of times for families, the obvious time to really consider the ABLE account is when we're starting to receive SSI or SSDI benefits. Not necessarily SSDI. SSI is really the one we want to pay attention to. But it's a good repository for them. It's a way to build money, act savings, not necessarily spend money down just because I'm scared of hitting the cap. To me, that's always just a big waste. I've got this benefit. I know my child's going to need some help later on. I want to leave them some money. I really don't want to have to spend money just so I stay underneath this artificial cap. Well, then put it in ABLE account. It takes a lot of SSI to get to $100,000. So that's kind of low hanging fruit there. Marina, I know we're short on time. I don't know if that covered the rest of it.
I just have a question with the Able account though. That's in a totally different bank. Because Isaiah has a local bank account. And so is there a select banking process?
Yeah, let me clarify that. It's not a bank.
okay.
I'm sorry. So let me
Okay.
talk about this a little bit more. It's not a bank, and you do not go to a bank to open. Every state, and I believe at this point, all 50 states, the treasurer's office of the state creates the program. So every state has its own program. And it's like Arkansas's treasurer's office has established an Arkansas Able program, and you join it online. There are some states that have merged their plans together. In particular, there's one called Stable, STABLE, that does that. But they are not bank programs. They are state-run programs. And the criteria really is that you be disabled. And if you are receiving SSI, you are automatically deemed to be disabled. If you are not receiving SSI, you can have your doctor certify that you're disabled. And that disability, the age onset of the disability had to be prior to age 26. That does not mean you have to open it before you're 26. You can be any age. You just had to have the age of onset to be prior to age 26. And those are the only two criteria.
So what you're saying is that we can go online to the treasurer's office and find what do you call it?
You just Google Arkansas Able account.
Okay. Help you. Thank you. I'm lost for words on this.
Yeah, I don't remember what the website is. I just Google Arkansas Able account.
Okay.
I know that.
Holly again, yes. So just kind of to clarify, so when SSI, my boys don't have it, but they will be eligible.
Yeah.
I have two, honestly, and they're both adopted. We don't know onset, but they had the disabilities at age 5 when they were adopted. And I'm a single I am a single mom. So if they don't have SSI, but you go to apply for it, you wouldn't have this account before, or you would have it set up before? Because when they ask you, what are your assets? What do you say?
It's either one. I generally don't see much benefit in having it prior to becoming eligible, unless you've got another family member or something that just wants to kind of just give them some money. So when I was growing up, my grandmother always got me a savings bond for Christmas and that sort of thing. And her grandma just wants to leave you, a couple $100 or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Instead of the whole story we've heard 1,000 times of burying the money in the coffee can out back or whatever. It's much better for the child and you to open an Able account and just put it in there. And there's absolutely no reason you should have any concern about reporting an Able account on an SSI application. I mean, it's written into the SSI rules. It is they recognize it for what it is. It is not accountable, and it gives me no pause at all to have one. I just normally I wouldn't recommend opening one unless you really had something to put in it. I wouldn't open it.
They do get a few $100s. They don't have people active in their life, but they send them a check for birthdays and Christmas. And they both have about, $1,200 a piece right now. And I'm keeping it in an envelope.
Well, go put it in there. It'd be a whole lot. Yeah, it's a whole lot better in an account than it,
Yeah. So when SSI says what are their assets, do you just say they have an Able account and you list the amount, or you don't?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure on the application itself, there's a specific question for Able account. You just answer it yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. This is amazing information. Thank you.
Michelle has put the link in the chat. Wait, where did you put it, Michelle? She put it in the chat savedwiththeable.com. So if you want to check that out, Holly, and others that would be interested, that's your link.
Which one did she list?
She put it in the chat. It's called Save with Able. I haven't looked it up.
It's the one that I used when I opened one. So I think it's the main one. It details what the ABLE is, and then it has a link or a button where you can open one, but it's got like different documents you can open and question and answers and stuff. But that's the one that I don't know if there's a different one for everybody, but that's the one that I use to open my kid.
I recommend that people look at Arkansas's ABLE program, which is fairly good, and then the stable, the STABLE. I ask folks, and to me, the driving factor is the debit card. I mean, how accessible is the card? How easy is it to use? That's what makes it functional in my view. And so that's
one of the challenges, of course, is documentation. I'm one of those. I'm old school. I like checks, but that way I follow. And just what kind of accounting would you recommend as far as keeping records? Because you lose it on the computer. Sometimes, I mean, I have, but in your experience, how would you recommend parents keep an accounting for this?
See, that's one reason I like ABLE accounts, because I can go, it's just like my personal checking account. I mean, I can usually print a statement going back to day one anytime I want. And for me, that's just me personally, that's an easier way to account. That's just me than writing paper checks. I think that's what advantage to an ABLE account, because it's all the expenditures are already there.
Okay.
Rodney, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Rodney. Tell us who you are.
Well, hey, y'all are talking about all this stuff, and I'm not seeing it in my end on the chat or question and answers.
Oh,
I can't see it either.
okay.
I
Michelle,
don't know how to do
I
that.
had to fix the settings. For whatever reason, it disabled the chat. So now it just sent it to everyone. See if y'all can see it now.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I just wanted to say, I think this is a real good presentation, Lorena, that Thomas Smith did, because I have gotten lots of phone calls lately, because evidently during the pandemic, people weren't going nowhere, and parents were letting these SSI checks add up in the bank. And now they're kind of freaking out because they're having to reapply for Medicaid services and everything, which is a requirement. And that they're afraid they're like going to be over income and all that. And I did exactly what you were saying, was telling them, go to the, state website and get the ABLE account information and
Absolutely.
get that money in there as soon as you can.
Yeah, it is absolutely, no one should have any qualms about that. I mean, that's what it's designed for. Social Security Administration recognizes it for what it is. So Social Security Administration has this thing called their book, so to speak, is this thing called POMS, POMS. It's a Program Operations Manual System. Anyway, it is in a mass of rules and regulations, but needless to say, ABLE account is specifically written into it. It refers to it by name, and it's very easy to deal with it. And generally, don't raise many questions. Whereas a special needs trust, whole nother creature, can at times raise questions, and that's a whole nother topic for another day. The ABLE account tends to fly under the radar.
Thomas, there was a request in the chat for you to put your contact information. I don't see you have it on the presentation like you've had in the past. So if you don't mind doing
no, I'm
that.
not sure. Well,
And Rodney, for some of you, some of the people who are on might not know who you are. And to me, Rodney's an institution of Little Rock. I mean, he's cool. Rodney, can you share a little bit about you, what you do while Thomas is typing?
I work for a section under DDS called Children with Chronic Health Conditions. We've been Children's Medical Services, we've been Children's Services, but we are the Title V, which is Social Security legislation, believe it or not, the Title V program for Arkansas. And so we provide services to children 0 to 18 that even though we're under developmental disabilities, they could just have like a chronic illness. And I've been doing that for over 27 years, and I'll soon retire March 1st of 2023. And so as Lorena said, I've been around doing this a lot. And so I saw this come up and I was interested in it because the guy I used to have do presentations for us at Elders Law in Little Rock here has retired. And so it was good to see a new name, Thomas Smith's name up here today, to be able to, because a lot of people ask about that. And I've recently had calls, like I said earlier, about the people being afraid, because we have been informing people to fill out their paperwork for, make sure it's updated for waiver if they're on the waiver wait list. If they're on TEFRA, they need to get all this stuff taken care of because they didn't really look at application processes during the pandemic. And they just kept people on. And so potentially you could be kicked off if you don't have all that stuff updated, because they're expecting in January for us to be considered no longer in the pandemic status.
Yep.
So thank you. And thank you for letting me do a little introduction, Lorena.
Oh, always, because I appreciate you, Rodney, because like I said, you're an institution. I've known you since, well, I don't know how old Isaiah is when we first met, but you've just been great help for a lot of parents across the state. Are there any more questions? Oh, Cynthia would like to do a special needs trust, Thomas. So perchance we might be able to do that in with say a couple of months from now.
We would love to. Special Needs Trust is it's pretty much the heart and soul of our practice. So
yeah, well, I think I'm there. And like Rodney said, I know I came within a few dollars of too much for Isaiah. And when I found out, I was told that I would, be kicked off. I would lose waiver provider, or I'd have to find a reason, for all these issues. So the ABLE account is great. I'm a little older, so we've got to look at special needs trust for the future. And my family, my children live out of state, so it's just Isaiah and I. So this is important issues. And anyone else who's present, is there any other subject that you would like from the legal point of view, or this aspect that Thomas might be able to speak into that you might have? Michelle, go ahead. You're part of TCFEF. Or was that Holly? Go ahead, Holly. Unmute yourself. Or can she? There you go.
Yeah, I couldn't. I had to wait for him to offer me unmute. So
okay.
You said something that kind of scared me. So my boys are 18 and their child support is now all of a sudden considered their income because they're both still in high school. That's what they're telling me at Social Security. But bigger than that, I'm having different people telling me that not only will they not get SSI, which I'm not even concerned about at this point, but that they could be kicked off the waiver list. Not only one of them's on it.
So, yeah, so two real important things, and I don't know that we're going long, but I don't care.
That's okay, we're good.
So two really important things. So, okay, so this comes up all the time. So child support payable to the child is income, and I certainly love Rodney's aspect on this too. However, so Social Security regulations recognize this issue. And what you do in the child support decree, you have it paid to what's called a first party special needs trust, okay? We establish a trust. Child support payable to that trust is not income for SSI purposes at all. And we do this, we've done this with some frequency. And then the other issue, you remember, a lot of people don't realize this, child support generally can be payable for the child's life if they're receiving SSI. That's a separate order from the court. Two separate issues you gotta tackle. First one is that child support doesn't have to go away because it's attorney team. Second one is, as long as it's payable to a first party special needs trust, it is not counted for SSI or Medicaid or waiver or anything. So there's a whole ball of wax on how to handle that, but the good news is there's easy solutions. And they're written into the Social Security palms that they call them.
Well, do they get kicked off the waiver list though? Based on that?
It shouldn't be if it's handled correctly.
No,
Right.
but I mean, if we don't do anything, I don't.
Oh, if you don't do anything, I'm sure they would be, yeah.
But what does the waiver list have? Is it income based, not disability based?
It's both.
You have to be Medicaid eligible to be on.
Yeah, it's both.
Yeah, I think what's confusing to me was, okay, wow.
Well, the thing is, Isaiah was on TEFRA because my late husband, because of income, but he was put on the waiver list. And then he was able to get off the waiver list when Governor Huckabee sued the tobacco industry. And so when I spoke to SSI, they told me they weren't looking at our income.
They're
They were
not.
looking at Isaiah's disability, and same thing with waiver. And so Rodney helped me out because I was told that income had nothing to do with Isaiah's waiver process unless he goes over $2,000.
Yeah, but you have to be Medicaid eligible.
Right.
So you have to be, you're Medicaid eligible by disability or it is your by disability. But if you're disabled, whether you're under 18 or over 18, you most likely qualify for SSI check.
So here's the issue. It's your son's income, right? So your son's isn't earning any income. He's eligible, but child support is deemed to be income to the child.
Right.
So that
Okay.
in the case we just talked about, the difference there is that's income to the child unless it's payable to a first party special needs trust. That's the issue. It's both. You always have to be medically eligible. That's the first threshold no matter what. But then you still got to be able to check the boxes on the income and asset cap too.
Well, he gets the child support is $1,000 a month, and then he is 100% disabled. He
Yeah.
has the waiver and all that. So some people were saying there's no way he'll get cooked off a waiver wait list. He's not just a normal disability issue.
You- No. You gotta get that fixed.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I may need to call you then.
There was a statement here Cindy posted that, Cindy, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. I was
Okay,
just going
hon.
to mention if there's anybody in that transition age that there's a free fair
And-
that City Connections and Arkansas Downs Association is doing at Access on Mississippi this Saturday from 9 to noon.
Now, where's it located?
It's Access has two locations. It's the one on Mississippi.
Mississippi.
In
I'm
Little
sorry.
Rock. In Little Rock.
Okay, that's where it's like on Mississippi. I'm thinking, hold on here.
Sorry, I forgot this
There's
is a
Mississippi
webinar
County,
was
there's
statewide.
Mississippi River. Okay, so it's at Little Rock,
Yes, it's in Little Rock.
and you have the address for that?
Not handy, but I could
Okay, hon.
Google
Okay.
it.
Okay. So I'm sure there's a few people that's in transition. And Cindy, if you can email me that, we can send that out. Michelle's she's our tech guru, so that we can inform parents, because we've got quite a few that are in that transition. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it. And Michelle said she'll post it on Facebook. Are there any other questions?
I wanted to just mention real quick that the Parent Advisory Council is going to be having their 10th annual Famous Family Bistro, April the 29th of 2023. It's a Saturday. It's going to be on the UCA campus, right by ATEN and ATEN Broadcasting. It's going to be right there. I can't think of the name of the building right now, but it's already been confirmed. And so this weekend, they're going to be working on presenters and speakers. So that would be a good opportunity for Thomas to do a webinar or something at the event, because the event is going to be hybrid. It's going to be by Zoom and in person. So that's something that's coming up that exceptional families could be involved with, and any organizations. And Thomas could do a presentation at. And I'll get that, save the date sent to you, Lorena.
Okay, so could he physically be there, or do you?
Yeah, he can
prefer Zoom?
physically be there or
Okay.
Zoom, either way.
So Thomas, put that in your, if you're available in April. It's after
Yeah.
taxes. It's after taxes. For
I'd
some of us, it might be
I'd
too
love to
late,
go.
but anyway.
I would love to go.
Okay. Connie, go ahead and unmute yourself. You've got a comment about ABLE experience. Are you still here, hon? I don't know. Is Connie still here? Somebody might have to unmute her if she's still here.
I tell you what,
Thomas, you need to unmute Connie. You go to chats or participants. Okay.
I'm muted now, I think.
Okay, Connie, are you there? Can you, she's unmuted, but her hand's raised, but I don't see. Can you hear us, Connie? Hmm. I see you're here. You're unmuted. Are you, can you talk, Connie? She says she's talking,
Yeah.
so I don't. I don't know why Connie. Michelle, is there a way you can assist us? I don't know why Connie's not able. Michelle says that your volume might be down, Connie. I'm hearing some noise. She says I'm talking. While we're waiting, I see Mary Jo is here. Mary Jo and I have worked several years. She's in the Boone County area. She works for, hi, Mary Jo, are you available?
Lorena,
Hi.
How-
Mary Jo, have you had any experience with the clients that you've had with DHS?
I've had a lot of experience with the clients I've had at DHS. What are you referring to?
With this, what the topic, have you had any that need assistance with
There's been a few about ABLE, a lot, most of mine are the guardianship, the POAs, the assisted decision making,
okay,
especially when, as their kiddos get older. And we talk a lot about that when we do transition information and resources.
okay. Well, just wondering, okay, Connie, you want to try again? I'm gonna let's see, unmute you. Thank you, Mary Jo. Connie, you want to try it again? I see you're unmuted. Perhaps you can, if we're having trouble, Connie, can you type it in the chat so that, or the question, whichever one you want to type it in, your comment? Don't know. Oh, it's too
It's
long
too
to
long to
type. I'm so sorry, Connie. I don't know why. Everybody
Yeah.
else is working. Um, but now it says that if you start able account before 18. Did you start able account before 18, Connie? Will you have to redo after, will you have to redo the able account if the person turned, if you open it before 18 and then after they turn 18?
I don't think so. Of course, you do generally with your SSI and other things. I'm not aware of having to redo enable at 18. To be honest, that may be dependent on whatever state plan you're using, because again, each state does its own, and there are, she's saying, yes, they will. Okay, I haven't run into that.
That's something to do some research and find out, because if it's happened to Connie, then we know it's happened probably to other people.
It could,
So,
it could. There's different things, and there's whole issues, and I know that there are different states that treat some of these things different ways. So it could be.
well, I know the issue that, and I'm usually very quiet about it. Isaiah got SSI early. And then when my husband passed away, he got this huge check
Yep.
compared to what he had before.
Yeah.
And of course, and then I hear some people can't have but one car, and some people can't do this and can't do that. So
Yeah.
there was a conflict with SSI. So I just said, oh, I never told everybody about all the good things
I
we
understand.
had. So I don't know why SSI is so selective or whatever, how they did it.
Yeah.
But the gals that called me from SSI said, sorry for your loss. Do you want this track or that track? And I said, well, what would do me best? And she said, this track. I said, okay. She says, well, you have to deny this track. Okay, I'll deny this track, then I'll go this way. So now, I have to spin down. So I need to get Isaiah on an able account. So, all righty. Well, we're almost, we did book it till 1:30 just for questions and answers. But for everybody who stayed on, I bless you. And Thomas, I really do thank you for your time.
I love it. I enjoy it.
And,
Thank you so much for the time.
We will plan, we'll talk later on today. Check your calendar and let's take a look and see what we can do to talk about the Special Needs Trust,
Very good. Look forward to
so
it.
that we can let our those who are interested know and be prepared to participate.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
Thank you,
so
everybody.
much. Appreciate you.
I
Take care.
appreciate you. Okay. Have a great afternoon, everyone.